Marner and Domi hit the ice in the sixth tonight. Is the Laine v. Matthews rivalry back on? And we have a resolution to Offer Sheet Gate. Jammed up show coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Now through September 22nd, FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. What's going on, Dave? How you feeling on a Wednesday?
Doing pretty good. It's been a busy few days in the CFL world, so I've had to do a lot of work, let's just say.
Yes, it certainly has been. You got the return of Nathan Rourke. You got the return, I guess, now, Chad Kelly. It was announced that he's going to start for the Boatmen for the Argos on Thursday. So we'll see what comes of that. But were you at practice today? You were down on location?
Honestly, I was there, and it felt like I was at a Leafs practice. With all the
really,
I got my Leafs practice experience today.
So on a regular basis, how many cameras and beat writers are there, and then how many were there today? Give us an example.
Usually it's me and the Canadian press, no other beat writers. Then usually cameras. Once in a while we get TSN because TSN usually conducts different interviews for their broadcast.
Right.
Once or twice a week, Argos will have their content crew out, and that's it. It was a culture. Yeah. And today I counted about 8 cameras, but it's still just me and the Canadian press as beat writers. Kind of shows where the Toronto sports scene has gone with their sports coverage.
Yeah, well, it got some pub on Overdrive today. I was doing Overdrive on Tuesday, and we talked about the Chad Kelly news a little bit. So, people love when hot Argos talk infiltrates OD in the summer. Let's not let it infiltrate much more here of the Locked On Leafs podcast, though. We got a lot to get into, so let's start with a couple of things. I mean, obviously, we now have a resolution to Offer Sheet Gate. We've got the Edmonton Oilers electing not to retain either Dylan Holloway or Philip Broberg, so we'll get to that in a little bit. The Patrik Laine saga is also over. The Columbus Blue Jackets traded him to the Montreal Canadiens. So he's back in the Atlantic Division, or at least for the first time. But now is there another budding rivalry between him and Matthews that could potentially unravel the next little bit. We'll get to that also. But let's start local, right? Saw that we got Hockey Night in Brampton going on tonight, which is a great little fundraiser and a cause charity game between a lot of former and current NHLers, and got a couple of Maple Leafs who are going to be taking part in the game. Looks like Max Domi and Mitch Marner both going to be playing in the charity game tonight. Daryl Sittler going to be doing the ceremonial puck drop, so there'll be a nice little Leafs flair in this one tonight.
Yeah, it's nice. I think last year Giordano and Tavares were there. It's all just great for great causes, and things like this. This is where I always appreciate NHL players. Like they're at this point getting themselves back into preparing for the season. Like they start doing their summer skates. So I mean, some people say, well, what else have they got to do? No, these charity events, they do take a lot of work to put together, but I think Doug Gilmour and Wendell Clark are going to be there too. They're going to have like signing sessions.
I think they're the captains, aren't they? Aren't they the captains for the two teams? The coaches, maybe the coaches for the two teams. I thought I saw.
I might actually. I think so. I think Ryan Getzlaff. I saw like on the website that they're a part of it. Be part of it. Mm-hmm. Newly added to the Department of Player Safety.
Saw that the other day. Yeah.
George Peros is bringing in former Ducks to run.
I guess
DOPS. But yeah, no, it's cool. Like I always say, like if you have best chance to meet your like idols, I know a lot of these fans that love Wendell Clark and Dougie Gilmore. I think if you go at 6:15 is when it starts. Probably have to go down a little earlier, but good opportunity to get a free autograph.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's looking to go, they want to get a jersey signed or they want to get, a poster signed or whatever, nights like this, right? Events like this is kind of where you can get all that. And they're happy to go out there and sign autographs. Bring your kid down. It's going to be a really good time. And, they're raising money too for a good cause. So hockey night in Brampton tonight. I'll be
Decent
curious.
roster too, by the way. Like, did you look at the roster for these teams?
I did. There's a lot of really good, there's a lot of, they've got a mix of men and women too, because I know that Renata Fast is going to be playing, Tessa Bonhomme is going to be playing, a bunch of, current NHLers.
Nick Kyprios.
Nick Kyprios is going to be in that game. I think
Chris Pronger.
Prongs. I didn't see Prongs.
Yeah, Chris Pronger's going to be in there, which I was like, wow. I didn't know he was like still skating and doing that stuff because with his injury history, I thought that was like kind of intriguing to see what Chris Pronger kind of looks like on skates now.
Well, I would imagine in games like this, you keep the pucks low. I think we're keeping pucks low. I don't know.
Keep the sticks low too.
Yeah, keep the sticks low, keep the pucks low. Ain't nobody want to get injured, especially like Domi and Marner. Could you imagine if someone like snaps a leg or something like that in this game, like Mitch Marner tears an ACL? I mean, let's not even put that bad juju.
Nope, let's not throw that in there. Don't want that.
I'm just saying, don't
want that juju.
No. We don't need that juju. No. I'm gonna. Didn't happen. I didn't say that. Didn't happen.
Cody Hodgson's playing. That's an intriguing name.
I did see that name because remember he signed with the Milwaukee Admirals, I think it was last year, the AHL down in Nashville, the affiliate there. I think he scored a couple goals. He tried to come back. I don't know if he plans on continuing that this year. Actually, I'm not sure what the situation is with Cody Hodgson, but good to see that he's kind of back in the fold, at least doing some hockey with a bunch of other players. I don't know if it's, I guess, with the Alumni Association or what it was where he got the invite, but you got a lot of local hockey players. I think Dylan Strome is going to be out there as well. Yeah. So Perfetti. Good chance. Yeah. Cole Perfetti, really good chance for anyone who wants to go and watch the game, go and try and get some autographs from some players, both new and old. You can go and do that tonight down in Brampton. All right, let's take a break and let's get to the nitty gritty of today's discussion because, we last left off Monday's show and we did not have a resolution to offer sheet gate. We knew that was coming pretty soon. And we had heard that there was a possibility that Laine was going to get dealt. He had said he wanted to be on the move. Dom Waddell had come out and said that as well. Sure enough, later that day, boom, big trade. Laine is now a Montreal Canadian. So we'll talk about that, what it could possibly mean for the Maple Leafs moving forward. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more monthly visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. So just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you here as per usual every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the month of August. And then right when training camps pick back up, we'll be back to daily coverage of your Toronto Maple Leafs. You can find the podcast on every podcasting streaming platform and also up on YouTube. Just search up Locked On Leafs, hit subscribe, hit the little notification bell as well so you know exactly when new videos drop daily. All right, Dave. A couple big newsy items that went down over the last 48 hours since we did our last show. Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers both are electing not to tender both offer sheets, and they basically said "Hasta la vista" to Dylan Holloway and to Philip Broberg. But before that, Patrik Laine came through with a big, massive trade with the Columbus Blue Jackets and Montreal Canadiens Monday afternoon. He goes to Montreal along with a second-round pick for Jordan Harris. Montreal did not ask for any salary retention. They take on the full pop $8.7 million cap hit, which, seems like there was not a lot of teams willing to do that. What did you make of this deal?
Well, I mean, the what made this, I think, worthwhile for the Canadiens is getting that second round pick. And look, they have an abundance of young defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure like a Jordan Harris would be enough to get like a Patrik Laine type return. But at the same time, I think that deal that like Columbus just wanted out of it. They wanted out, like Laine wanted out, Columbus wanted out. Montreal pounced on the situation. Now, 8.7 is also a huge chunk of change for a player that the last few years hasn't played to his potential. I know there's been some off ice things that he has been dealing with, some mental health issues that he has been dealing with. So there's
along with injuries too.
Yeah, injuries too, and also playing for a really not great Columbus Blue Jackets team, right? So he's been around the block a bit, and I think what it really shows him wanting to get out of there. He had Montreal on his no trade list, and Columbus like they're like offering something for you. We need like this is your best opportunity to join a new team and get a fresh start. And so I think it's the right situation for him. I know some people are like, this is like a tough market to play in, but I feel like Montreal's done a better job of insulating players. I feel like he will be in this group because he's joining a team with some younger talent. They're going to get more of the spotlight. And we'll see if Martin St. Louis can work up a little magic because they're going to need goals. And I truly believe he is going to probably be their top goal scorer at this rate.
Cole Caulfield's a pretty good goal scorer. We can't short. I was going to say can't shortchange him. Zinger.
That's a good one. Good one.
I didn't mean to do it. I
know you didn't mean it. It just sort of happened.
No pun intended, but yeah, don't shortchange Cole Caulfield. I mean, you don't get the nickname Gold Caulfield, but it's nice to add a secondary piece if you're the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, you've got Slafkovsky who's slowly coming along. You like the way that things kind of played out towards the back half of the season. You got a big extension. Obviously, you like what you're seeing out of Nick Suzuki so far into his career. Now you're kind of adding that other secondary piece, right? That more veteran piece. It will be interesting to see if he can get back to what he was. He spoke with Habs media on Tuesday and said his expectation is to become a 40-50 goal guy again. He had a career high of 44 goals. I think there was his second season in the NHL. He's yet to do that again. He's hit 30 a couple of times with the last couple of years with the injuries and whatnot. Has not been able to really be a big factor in Columbus, and it's just not a great market. And obviously his headspace wasn't there either. Now he's in Montreal. This is a hockey city, and Patrik Laine kind of gives me a little bit of, I don't want to like kind of like Phil Kessel vibes. Like he just wants to play hockey in a way. Like I think he wants to play hockey. He just wants to score goals, and that's what he's going to be. And I remember a quote from Marty St. Louis when he first took over as head coach. And someone had asked him about, why he thinks or what's going to be different about his style than, Ducharme's style when he took over. And he said, when you've got skilled players, let them be skilled players, right? In reference to like Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki and the young talent they had. He's like, as someone like St. Louis, who early in his career was bogged down by people putting reins on him. He's of the belief that if you've got the skill and you've earned it, like reins are off. You do what you got to do in order to be the player that you can be. And I think that should be able to resonate with Patrik Laine. And I believe we'll see a return to form. 50 goals, maybe a bit of a stretch, but I mean, he's only 26. He could easily have that bounce back. Sean Monahan had a good bounce back with the Montreal Canadiens, and I think they're hoping to do the same thing. It's a very low risk move. I mean, they have the cap space, right, for the next couple of years. All they had to do was give up Jordan Harris, who may not have even made the team next year based on the abundance of young defensemen pushing for roster spots. And they got a second round pick on top of it. So that was a good move for the Habs to jump on that opportunity for sure. And we'll kind of see what ends up happening with Laine. But either way, even if it doesn't work out, all right, whatever. You didn't really give up anything, and you got a pick out of it as well. So I think it's a good move for the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I am curious, the Leafs spin on it. Does it kind of reignite a Laine versus Matthews rivalry, right? Like, remember that was a big thing. Their first 2 seasons, trading goals back and forth in that first game that they had played against one another. I think Laine had like 4 goals that night or something. It was wild. The first couple of seasons, who was better? Obviously, Matthews took that and ran with it, and he is very clearly the better player now. But we've been back in the division, the Montreal Canadiens, Les Habitants, like, does that reignite this at all, you think?
Personally, no. Just because I don't know if the Habs should want to do that to Laine, because they just need him.
I don't think the Habs are going to do it, but like,
the fans will
make a big deal about it.
I think for sure. And we already kind of started to see it a little bit, like
game one. It's Leafs Habs game 1 of the season.
Well,
right?
it's gonna be up there for sure. I
That'll
think
be a storyline.
I think it'll be a storyline for sure, because they're gonna bring, even if they're not gonna say it's a current rivalry, they're gonna talk about how it was, in the past. You have 2 guys who were top picks in that draft. They went head to head, so it's going to be talked about. But yeah, I think many people would agree now it's not as much of a rivalry. And like Laine at that time, I thought Laine was a great goal scorer, but it was just a little too much for him to kind of go head to head with Matthews when he did not have the supporting cast that Matthews had to work with.
Yeah, I mean, things clearly fell off. Like, the last few years has been no rivalry. Like, it's inexistent, but could be back. Could be back. We'll have to wait and see. All right, let's take another break. Let's come back and let's get into what happened in Edmonton on Tuesday. The Oilers electing to not match either offer sheet. Was that a surprise to you, Dave? Answer that question on the other side. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's North America's #1 sportsbook, and we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial on NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon at a market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel it anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you here on a Wednesday. Lots of stuff going on this week. Just a reminder tonight to anyone who wants to go check out the Hockey Night in Brampton game, the charity event that's going down. Max Domi, Mitch Marner will be in attendance. Think media allowed at this one, Dave? You think Marner's going to have to speak?
I do know that there are some media who are planning to attend, so don't know if Mitch is going to be able to get away from that, but we'll see.
He'll deflect anyway. It'll be a deflect. And I don't blame him, to be fair. I don't blame him for deflecting the question. I think day one of training camp, once training camp rolls along, okay, then answer those questions at a charity event, even at Tavares's or Matthews' captaincy. I don't blame him for not wanting to take up that type of spotlight. So I don't think he will, nor should he have to talk about it tonight. But at some point, Mitch Marner will have to answer the question about his contract status going into the season. Tonight might not be that night. We do know the contract status of both Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. They are now new St. Louis Blues. Broberg ends up signing a deal just over $5.5 million, and Holloway signing a 2-year deal as well, just over $2.3 million. And Edmonton electing not to match either, and they receive a second and a third round pick as compensation. Did you notice that there was also some additional compensation involved? A really interesting deal went through this morning where the St. Louis Blues traded a future third round pick and some random prospect for future considerations to the Edmonton Oilers mere minutes before Edmonton elected not to match the offer sheets. Kind of
Yeah.
interesting, no?
It was really strange how that kind of all really worked.
It goes against
And
the spirit of the rule. That
I
is
know
the
it's just
offer
like
sheet.
why are you adding more to, like, you made the deal, you that's the compensation. You don't need to throw in anything. If you want to throw in a dinner to the GM, like, that's fine. Like, so you feel like you have to do something like that, but don't throw in extra draft picks.
Well,
Why?
I was having this conversation with Frankie, and I don't know if he was trying to play devil's advocate, but we're talking about it on overdrive. And I'm like, there's no way Edmonton was playing hardball for an extra third round pick. They wouldn't have screwed up their cap situation just to get that extra third round pick. So to me, I think this was honestly St. Louis knowing that they put Edmonton in a bad spot. And it's like, hey, no hard feelings. We'll give you this extra pick since we're absolutely getting the better end of the deal here and getting two quality players for, a very insignificant asset amount. Yes, they're paying a lot in cap space, but the Blues have plenty of it. And they
Yep.
also don't have a lot of guys to re-up over the next 2 years that would have really damaged their ability to do so by signing these contracts too. Something that Edmonton did not have the opportunity to do so, which to me is kind of what went into this. Like, I don't know about you, Dave, but I can't help but feel Edmonton kind of feeling the pressure of not having Draisaitl signed and said to themselves, "Look, we're already up against the cap as is. I don't know if we can, sign these guys to these big money deals that we did not expect to have to pay." Like, we were talking to Ryan Rashog, TSN Oilers reporter, and he said that the deal on the table originally for Broberg was like 1.1 million, and Holloway was similar, like one and change. Like, they expected for both of these guys to sign something with a one in it with their RFA contracts, and all of a sudden those numbers just absolutely skyrocketed. It just simply didn't fit into Edmonton's cap structure anymore, and didn't fit going forward, knowing that they have not only Draisaitl but also Evan Bouchard that they would have to sign at some point too.
And in a few years, Connor McDavid.
And also, yes, Connor McDavid would have had to factor in. Although I guess technically that contract comes in when the Holloway and Broberg contract comes up.
Sure. Yeah, in those
Yes.
deals. Like, I even looked at back when they were talking about how bad Darnell Nurse was playing based on his contract and how that contract was buyout proof. Like, how big of a hole it put Edmonton long term when it comes to locking up Bouchard, locking up Draisaitl, locking up McDavid. And it's like these two contracts, these two are offer sheets really do make it really makes it tough for them to, like, all right, we can do this now for this upcoming season. But even the season after, fitting all that in, it might not seem like, oh, but that's just 1 year. That's 1 year you got to figure out. Like, even this year to squeeze all those guys in would have been, to make a roster capable of playing would have been a real pain. Yeah, they could have put Kane on LTIR, but we talked about it. Like, you take him off LTIR, what's the move? How do you get him back, right? The dead cap they have too that that they're dealing with the buyouts and things like that. They were in a real bind. Like, this is why St. Louis did it. They didn't say, you know what, we're just gonna go a little, like, no, they're like, we're gonna make this really, really tough on them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I hope that we get more of this going forward. There are current RFAs right now that teams should be doing this with.
Yep.
I mean, like,
Jeremy Swayman.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Absolutely. If you're a team in need of a goaltender, yeah, let's go offer sheet Jeremy Swayman. Or what about a Lucas Raymond out in Detroit? Or
Yep.
Mo Sider. I mean, future number one defenseman, offensive point producing defenseman. Those guys are tough to find. Right shot, big body. I mean, go offer sheet this guy a big amount of money, right? Like, if it costs you a first and a third round pick, okay, sure.
You'll do
You're
that.
not going to get Mo Sider for a first and a third in trade. So what does it matter?
Like, for St. Louis, and you're talking about, like, they came out really good in this. The reason is a second and a third. Well, now 2/3. What is that? Like, that doesn't guarantee you what they get with these two players. Sure.
Do you want the numbers? I got the numbers.
Give me the numbers. I always love when you do it.
So traditionally, right, based on average, only 13% of third round picks play 100 games in the NHL. Only 13%. That number jumps a little bit up to 17% when you talk about second rounders. So they gave up Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, two guys who were taken the first round, who they believe can be top four defensemen, middle six wingers, real solid long-term NHLers. And they gave up 3 assets, a second and 2/3, essentially. And together, you're looking at a player with a 17% chance of becoming that, and 2 players 13% chance of becoming that. It's a no-brainer for us.
It is, and you're getting guys who are you're getting guys like Holloway's 22 and Broberg is 23. Like, they're not
young,
fully established what they are.
They're in the timeline of where St. Louis wants to be. Like, they're going through a bit of a rebuild, right? Like, they moved on from Ryan O'Reilly, they moved on from Alex Pietrangelo, that cup core, but they kept the young guys, right? Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, like, those are the guys who they're leaning on to be, that team's core. Colton Parayko is also in that mix, I suppose. But you look at the age of Holloway, you look at the age of Broberg, and you're right. They more so fit the timeline of we plan on being competitive again in 3 years, and that's when these guys are going to be hitting their peak as NHLers. So it makes a lot of sense on many different aspects. And ultimately, didn't cost them a whole lot. Cost them cap space, but it's a team who had a lot of it. And they don't have a lot of guys that they have to sign. Only Jake Neighbors is the only player of significance that they're going to have to re-sign before those contracts end. And cap space is going up, and they're also going to get some cap relief with a couple of expiring UFAs at the end of the year. So they'll be fine when it comes to trying to get Jake Neighbors signed as well. So, I think both the St. Louis Blues and the Montreal Canadiens, they made their teams better. They added cap space, sure, but they added good players as well. Yeah. So I commend both those general managers for going out, making some moves, getting a little untraditional, but they went out and they made their teams better, ultimately, at the end of the day.
Favorite soundbite from all this, Doug Armstrong, when they were talking about the offer sheets. I'll read the direct quote.
Yes.
If there's a GM code not to do offer sheets, nobody emailed it to me. It was reported I wouldn't have done this to Kenny Holland. That's not the truth. I'd do it to my mother if she was managing the Oilers. Best quote I've heard a GM from a GM for like such a long time.
Yeah, that was a good line. That was a really good quote. I'd offer sheet my own mother.
I think Doug Armstrong's going to get a call from someone after that one.
Supposedly, though, like, they weren't the only team that was considering this offer sheet. Like, Ryan Rishaug, like I said, we had him on Overdrive, and he was saying that there were rumors out there that there were a couple other teams gearing up to make a similar push at both of these guys. Just maybe no one really went to that number that St. Louis went to. But yeah, like Darren Ferris, I guess, was kind of shopping those guys around and trying to get the best deal for both those players. And it looks like St. Louis was the one team that really paid up. But apparently there was a couple teams that were interested in doing this, which hopefully means that we can get more of this each and every year because, it puts teams in a bind. Yes, but that's kind of what you want, right? And you want chaos and you want to create buzz and you want people talking about your league in the summer. That's how it happens. And hopefully, again, we see this happen more often. Any final words, Dave, before we take off for the day?
I appreciate NHL GMs giving us something to talk about this week.
Yeah, it's been nice. Last couple of weeks because you got, Matthews captaincy last week, and now you got the Laine trade. We've had the offer sheet saga for the last week that we've kind of had to chat about. Maybe we'll see something else come by Friday and give us something else to sink our teeth into on Friday's show. We'll also do another power ranking, blind power ranking. No, this is just a power ranking. This one's not blind. Ranking. Just the
Mondays are blind power rankings.
Mondays are blind power rankings. This was just our Friday 5-pack. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens between now and then. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. And follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Friday. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.